I'm Vector, and I love Jonathan Hickman. He's one of my favorite writers that's writing today, and I could not be more pleased to be joined by Super Tim, one of my favorite comic book readers and writers here today. Tim, how are you doing, sir? And I want to ask you, what is your history with Jonathan Hickman?
I'm fantastic today. And my history with Jonathan Hickman is fantastic. I didn't start with his
Ooh.
Fantastic Four run, but I eventually read it. I started it. I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about because Avengers: Infinity War was coming out, and they were
Yes,
talking
yes.
about the comics that were influencing um, this movie. And because the trailer had just come out, like we saw the Outriders, we saw the Black Order, so that's very
Mhm.
influential to Hickman's Avengers run. So I was very curious, and so I basically read all of Infinity on Marvel Unlimited, and that was just my exposure to Hickman. And then I started reading his Fantastic Four run, Future Foundation, which is fantastic.
Yes.
Uh,
No pun intended.
yeah, no fun. No, the pun is absolutely intended. So I really loved those runs, and uh, I started reading some of his X-Men stuff, and obviously when Ultimate Spider-Man, which we'll talk about today, was announced, I was like, this is great. I'm all in for this. Because his runs on not only teams but also specific characters has been fantastic and
Yeah.
wonderful and amazing, and all the
He's
adjectives you could apply to comic books.
He's one of those guys that, and I've talked about it before on this podcast, everything he puts out is great. He just doesn't miss. And so he's built up this reputation over the years of just a fantastic writer, no matter what genre he's in, no matter what characters he's writing. Like you, I've followed him at Marvel. I haven't delved into as much of his indie stuff, but I've read pretty much, I would say 99% of his Marvel work.
Mm.
And anytime I see his name, I know that it's gonna be smart. Like it's one of
Mm-hmm.
those things that this Grant Morrison is also similar, where I'm like, this might be over my head for the first time I read it, but I know it's all gonna make sense. I know it's all gonna connect at the end. You made all so great references to his Fantastic Four run, his Avengers run, his X-Men run, all of those at the beginning, like I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? And then by the end, it was like, this is a masterpiece. Jonathan
Mm-hmm.
Hickman is
Secret
great.
Wars too.
Yes, that was the culmination of his Avengers run, and it was Tim's kiss. It was the
That's right.
best way
Mwah.
that you could possibly in that run. So nothing but praise for Jonathan Hickman. And the reason we wanted to get together today and talk is because it was like the moons aligned, the Hickmanessence, what do we want, whatever we want to say. All of these things coalesced, and 1 month we had three Jonathan Hickman releases, very close to each other. Wolverine Revenge #1, Aliens versus Avengers #1, and Ultimate Spider-Man #8. Which we have been praising Ultimate Spider-Man from the beginning here on this Comic Cooks. You can go back and look
Yeah.
at our reviews of the individual issues. But Tim, where do you want to start here? Should we go in chronological order, or should we go in the order of your favorite? What do you want to do?
I want to talk. I want to talk Ultimate Spider-Man first because
Okay.
that was the
Yes.
first one I read.
Yeah.
And obviously we've been praising Ultimate Spider-Man this entire, like ever since it started. When I first heard about Ultimate Spider-Man, like first of all, it's Jonathan Hickman doing a Spider-Man book. Okay, I'm in. And also the concept of Peter Parker being married and then
Yes.
becoming Spider-Man is really cool. Seeing him juggle his kids and his wife was a really cool concept to me. Uh, we praise the relationship between J. Jonah Jameson and Uncle Ben. That has been wonderful. And for a first this book, for the first 7 issues, like for the first issue, um, so in Hickman's Fantastic Four and his Avengers run, he had his character maps. where it tells you
Yes.
what characters are going to be in the book, like who are the major
Mhm.
players. Even in Fantastic Four, when it's just the Fantastic Four, like you have the major players. 7 issues we hadn't gotten one, but this month we got one with Ultimate Spider-Man. So when I opened Ultimate Spider-Man number 8 and I saw that character map, I was like, yes, it now feels right. It just feels
Yes.
like a Hickman book. I
Yes.
mean, like it's been great. Ultimate Spider-Man's been great, but there's just something about seeing that character map in front of a Hickman book that it's comfort food. It's
Yes.
comfort
I
food.
I agree 100%, and it kinda sets you up, "Oh, this is gonna be a Hickman story, this is the way he organizes things." So,
Hmm.
every time I see that, I'm all in. Man, there was some great stuff that happened in this issue. The suit, we're getting to learn more about this Pico tech, and it seems like I don't know if you're getting this sense. It seems like it's being slowly hinted at that this is gonna be this ultimate version of the symbiote. Like, the way that it's starting to get into his psyche and like it's not it's in that early stage of when Peter had the black costume in the 616 where we still didn't know it was alive. We didn't know it was an alien. And it was like, some weird stuff is happening here. He's tired at night and his personality is starting to change a little bit. That's what I feel like right now in this eighth issue it having his personality and starting to talk to him, and he's like, "Wait a minute, that's not what I thought it was." It just that's what it seems like to me. It seems like this is the Hickman version of the symbiote coming up, and we need to, in the back of our mind, we need to pay close attention to that suit. Um, and eventually he'll just go back to the cloth suit. But man, I am loving the Pico tech of it all.
Yeah,
I just really like this design and the concept of it is really great. So I'm very much enjoying this. We have this deadline. We have a clock of the makers coming back. He's frozen in time, and we have like 6 months to get ready to prepare and Tony Stark finally coming out. We were kind of waiting for Tony Stark to come back, and
the Ultimates are
him.
here.
Yes, this is. Have you been reading the Ultimates on the side?
No, I saw the first 2 issues that dropped on Marvel Unlimited. I haven't picked them up yet.
They're still. They haven't. I guess it's hard because Ultimate Spider-Man has set the bar so high. All of
Hmm.
these other Ultimate books are just not on that same level. Ultimate Black Panther, Ultimate X-Men, and even the Ultimates, the first 2 issues, they haven't, like, been amazing to me, 5 out of 5. So, still got Ultimate Spider-Man up there as far as rankings, and the Ultimates, I wish it was a little bit stronger so that it could feed into this book and they can kind of, have a symbiotic
Yeah,
relationship between each other.
I was gonna, haha, symbiotic relationship. That's funny. Uh, no, I was gonna ask because we have Ultimate Iron Man here, Tony Stark, who had made an appearance the first issue and has kind of um, not been around. Uh,
Mhm.
and seeing him here, I was wondering if there was a connection between the Ultimates and Ultimate Spider-Man right now. So
Basically, without spoiling anything, the Ultimates are setting up their team over in the Ultimates, and they're preparing and getting ready. So
the
Tony's kind
Avengers are
of
assembling, so to speak.
yes. Tony's kind of distracted. Like he's like, I got something else to do over here. Let me stop and talk to Spider-Man real quick. I love the interaction between him and Harry. And hey, wait a minute, that was supposed to be my suit, the Green Goblin suit. And all right, you can have it. Like I've got a better and more advanced suit already, so yeah, you could take that one. But Peter was the special one, and this idea that Harry was not supposed to get this suit, and he was kind of asking, "Hey, what's my destiny?" He's like, "You don't have one. Like you're not supposed to be here." I thought that was interesting, and then what does that set up in the future for
It's
Harry? And
very it's very key for Harry because almost Tony Stark in this world is almost like a father figure to him.
hmm,
Uh, at least that's what I got the sense when he said he's not special. Those are always things that Norman said to him
yeah, hmm
in
Right.
in the regular Spider-Man books and in Spider-Man movies, is that you're not special, and like you're an Osborn, but that's basically as far as you've got. Like the Osborn name is basically all you've got in terms of speciality.
Mm.
And I love seeing the relationship between Harry and Peter, and seeing where it's like, I'm very interested to see where it's going to deteriorate.
Yeah.
And like because we know it's going to. It's like Smallville with Clark Kent and Lex
Yeah.
Luthor. We
Right.
know that like they're friends now, but we know that that relationship's going to deteriorate. And what is that deterioration? What's going to be that breaking point? Like what's
Right.
going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back between these two guys?
Yeah. It definitely seems like Harry's heading down that villain path and working with, um, I was going to say Osborne, working with Otto, and it seems like they're going down that villainous path, and Tony is kind of pushing him, even though indirectly, it's like I said, it's because he's kind of distracted and he's not paying attention. But also, it's funny they talk about the similarities between the two being, hey, none of our fathers are perfect, is what Tony says at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And you also forget Tony's younger, seems like, than these two, and he's a prodigy, but he's living up to his father's, what he's left behind, and he's trying to save the world. He's trying to do all these things, and it's almost like he doesn't have time to not babysit, but like mentor Harry and make sure he turns out okay. So yeah, that's another thing that I think we should definitely pay attention to in the background. Another
Yeah,
thing that's been great about this series the whole time is the J. Jonah, Uncle Ben, and Peter storyline of them setting up this
absolutely.
new is
The
it a
paper.
newspaper? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
Um
paper.
okay. I love, like, this could be a whole book and I would
Yeah,
still enjoy it. The back and forth between everybody. They're kind of recruiting Peter in this issue of, hey, come work for us. And initially he's like, I got a 401k, I got a family, and
yeah.
it's
Like
funny.
I've got a steady paycheck.
Yes.
Uh,
How
it's
relatable
like,
is that to us?
oh yeah, it reminded me of The Office when
Oh yeah, right.
Michael Scott is trying to recruit everybody into joining his fledgling paper company that he just
Yeah,
started that afternoon.
yes.
And everyone's like, I've got a paycheck, I've got all these benefits that I have. And and it's like, I think if this was the regular 616, and Uncle Ben was alive, and J. Jonah Jameson and Uncle Ben were friends, I think Peter would be more, more apt to do it, because he doesn't have anything to lose. Um, Whereas like when you have a wife and kids that that need things, and sometimes in the case of the kids, want things. Uh,
Yeah, and you
so
wanna provide for them. You wanna give them everything they want, basically.
yeah, you want to give him the world, and he just can't do that. So
Yeah.
um, was it this issue where Jay Jonah was talking to Little Richard?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
I loved that.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
like, is so cool to see, because Richard, because you have Richard and May in as the kids, and May has been given kind of the spotlight, because she's been the secret keeper, she's been with Dad, keeping the secret of Spider-Man. But now that Spider-Man secret's kind of out of the bag, she's not doing as much. So it's nice to see that Jay Jonah was acknowledging Richard, and I really
Yes.
loved that
Mhm.
touching moment at the end of the issue.
And great Easter egg, they would in arcade,
I
and
love that
then
so much.
that was a great
Like,
kinda
it's
616.
just like, it's these things in these books that that Marco Cicchetto has been putting in the art. And I'm sure Hickman's just like, can we put arcade on the arcade that they're at? Like, it doesn't have to be a prominent thing, but what if we just did that?
Yes.
And Marco's like, okay. And it's
And
just got his big head on the top of the building.
yes. And then there's a Stan's right next door, obviously a Stan Lee reference. But then
Mm-hmm.
inside of arcades, there's a video game arcade machine called Secret War. So that was also like it's Hickman. Look,
Yeah, it's a nice
does
Hickman
some great
Easter
stuff.
egg because there's all
Yes,
the all these little things. Hickman knows how to use the medium of comics to its fullest.
yes,
It reminds me a lot of what Tom Taylor does
mm,
with his writing. Where like here's this thing that it's almost like a film. You like here's this thing that is really cool. If you know it's there, great, and if you don't know it's there, wonderful. So,
yes,
and Secret War, is being there is very indicative because the Maker is coming.
yes. And then
And
the end. Oh yeah, go
can I
ahead.
say about this book, I love the timeline that we've been working on because usually comics, they take place over a certain amount of time, but each issue is taking place in the same month that the issue is coming out. And I've always
Yeah,
appreciated that because
yeah.
I think this
That's
issue
cool.
starts where it says August at the beginning of the issue. And I like that.
Yeah. The end of this book is setting up the Sinister Six. We've got Mr. Negative in this universe, Felicia Hardy's dad, who is this cat burglar, Craven the Hunter, and then Mysterio, which there was, and I sent you this screenshot of this when I was reading it. One of my favorite panel in this whole my joke panel, it's Mysterio is shorter than Craven, and he stand or not Felicia Hardy's dad. He's shorter than him, and he said, "Have you gotten shorter since our last meeting?" And then the next panel is Mysterio taller. He's like, "No." That made me laugh so hard. Of course not, is what he says. So that was
Yeah.
just a great joke. But Kingpin setting up what looks to be the Sinister Six, also the Mole Man, which it was like the Mole Man. That's really who you're gonna recruit. Um, but it looks like this ultimate version of the Sinister Six is going to be fantastic. And
Yeah,
then,
and Mr. Negative being a huge part too, because
yeah,
Mr. Negative is a huge part of the Spider-Man video game, which I
yes,
still need to finish watching.
yep, that is great. And then he's also, I want to say, let me look this up real quick because I don't want to speak out of pocket here, but I believe he was created by Dan Slott during the amazing Dan Slott run that when he was on Amazing. Yes, he was created by Dan Slott and Phil Jimenez, and it's crazy. We need to do a Dan Slott episode at some point because
Hmm.
it's crazy how much he's added to the Spider-Man mythos. But we'll save that for another
Yeah,
day.
like like not only Mr. Negative to the games, but also the Spider-Verse concept. Like
Oh yeah.
that has become like something that's huge in pop culture. Because we had the Across the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man No Way Home, probably Spider-Man 4. So.
Yes, that his contributions are tremendous. So yeah,
Hmm.
Ultimate Spider-Man number 8. I cannot I cannot understand how good this book has been, and every issue has been to me a 5 out of 5. Like there's been
Absolutely.
no complaints. So
Absolutely. I was in a
still my
class.
favorite book.
Yeah, I was in a class where I was talking to somebody, and we both agreed that Jonathan Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man has been fantastic and is worth the month to month. Because for me, when come new comic book day, and usually these two comic books come out the same day, Nightwing and Ultimate Spider-Man are always at the top of my list.
Yes, fantastic. All right, you want to talk Aliens versus Avengers or Wolverine Revenge?
Let's do let's just do it in order because we're
Okay.
on a kick here. Wolverine Revenge.
Yes. So this is Jonathan Hickman and Greg Capullo, which I've been a huge fan of Greg Capullo since the New 52 Batman. I did
Batman.
not read his he had a run on Spawn, which is where he really
Hmm.
became famous, and he like Todd McFarlane says he's the best Spawn artist of all time is Greg Capullo. So huge praise from the creator of Spawn, but this book, it just like it reminded me why I love Greg Capullo. Like his art on here is it's not cartoony, but um not it's not realistic. Like the opposite of a realistic artist. Doing Wolverine, doing all of these Marvel characters, Cap, like seeing Bucky, seeing all these guys who he had been DC for so long. I'm like, oh, this is him jumping in on the Marvel stuff and jumping in the Marvel universe. And I had anticipated this book, and it did not let me down. Hickman's writing of this, it seems like it's an alternate timeline or an alternate
Yeah,
world
it seems
because
to be an alternate history because it's not taking place in the current From the Ashes timeline that's happening right now in X-Men books that just barely started since the end of the Krakoa era. But yeah, it definitely seems like it's an alternate history. But yeah, seeing Hickman in this one issue use so many characters to play off of Wolverine was fantastic. Like, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Greg Capullo from Batman. When I heard about this book, yeah, you know, Jonathan Hickman, obviously I'm in, but Greg Capullo on the art is great. That cover is just amazing. Uh, like Greg Capullo's art has a very gritty style to it, and that's what made him so like. I could see why it would work for Spawn. It's why it works for Batman when he was working with Scott Snyder, and it definitely works here.
yeah, I'm loving this the style and the kinetic energy that we're getting. Um Looks like he actually did do some X-Men, Avengers, Quasar, and X-Force books back in the 90s. But his return this year of Web of Spider-Man #1 and then this Wolverine Revenge, it was like, this is
Right, let's
like
check
Greg
that out.
Capullo really digging his teeth in again. So I'm, you
Capullo
know,
Sans.
yeah, I didn't know what to expect because I didn't know where it was taking place. So at first it kind
That
of
was
threw
my
me off. I
question
was
too.
like, why is Nick Fury looking like classic Nick Fury, the David Hasselhoff Nick Fury, instead of eye patch Sam Jackson? I mean the Sam Jackson version of Nick Fury.
Right.
And what I mean, do we want to spoil what happens in this issue? There's some very graphic stuff that happens to some of our favorite characters. And I was like, wait a minute. How are they doing that? Oh, okay, yeah, this seems like an alternate timeline. This is not the 616 that we know. So when those uh deaths happened, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. What's going on here? As you were reading this, what was your kind of feeling? What was your take on this
Well,
version?
first of all, I thought it was going to be just a standalone Wolverine book, like just
Hmm.
Wolverine, like
Right.
what was those classic, kind of like Benjamin Percy's Wolverine run, which
Yes,
was
yes.
lovely. It was a brilliant run from start to finish, all 50 issues. I'd recommend it to anybody. So I was kind of expecting that. So when I saw Captain America and Bucky, uh, in this, I was like, okay, so this is kind of like a mini Avengers, Winter Soldier kind of vibe that we're getting, and then they're gone, uh, and then we get kind of the X Force near the end of the book, with Deadpool, and obviously Deadpool has gotten a lot of press lately because of Deadpool and Wolverine, the new movie, and breaking box office records left and right. But here's the thing about Deadpool is you never know when he's going to show up. Like when he shows up, it's always a pleasant surprise. This week I read Doom War by Jonathan Mayberry. I don't know if you've read that one.
Ooh,
Have you read that one?
I have not.
Okay, it's good. Because I've been on a Doctor Doom kick ever since Comic Con. Uh, so
As
I've been
you
trying to read
should.
all of Doctor Doom, and so I read that, and Deadpool just shows up. Like he just shows up. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh right, it's Deadpool. And he just shows up here too, and like, oh, it's Deadpool. And he brought a nice, as he often does, brings a nice sense of levity to
Hmm.
it. It didn't feel too, and Hickman's Deadpool here didn't feel too Ryan Reynolds, which I
Hmm.
appreciated, because that's been a thing with Deadpool and Iron Man in Marvel books. We've talked about this
Yes.
off camera.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Deadpool and Marvel and Iron Man in Marvel have like they've basically written them as Robert Downey Jr. and Ryan Reynolds, and Hickman didn't do that here, which I appreciated.
Yeah, I also like that. And like I said, keeping it to this otherworldly or this alternate universe or alternate timeline, it shouldn't be Ryan Reynolds. I don't think I should. I think it should be something that sticks more to the comic roots and plays off of that. It
Yeah.
was funny to see the antagonistic relationship between him and Wolverine after seeing Deadpool and Wolverine, that
Right.
just those like friction between those two. But
It made me want to
it,
read more Deadpool and Wolverine comics.
yeah, I think this is the storyline that Hickman has set up here. Is this is going to be a mini series as well? It's not like an ongoing or anything, or
Yeah,
it's not a
it's
one
5
shot.
issues.
I think we are in for a treat, just the way this first issue was set up. And it is, again, titled Wolverine Revenge. This is going to be Wolverine coming after people who have wronged him. And I love this. This is like the way you do a first issue. It's got a ton of action. It's got a ton of things that are going to hook you and say, okay, I need to keep reading this. I need to come back, not only for Hickman's storytelling, but for Capullo's art. So this was a winner for me, Wolverine Revenge #1. I can't wait to see what happens next and how the storyline ties up at the end. So a great issue.
Absolutely.
Any other closing thoughts for you on
No,
Wolverine
this
Revenge?
was really solid. I like how like you said, Wolverine coming after people that have wronged him. It's just good Wolverine storytelling,
Yes.
and you have Wolverine just cutting loose like he does best, and
Yes.
Greg Capullo's art is very suitable for that, and Hickman really nails the character. I wonder if it's interesting because we have this Wolverine Revenge and Ultimate Spider-Man, which is two classic characters, but Hickman's putting his own spin on it, and I
Yes.
really appreciate that, and I think
And
it makes me wonder if he's been wanting to take a no pun intended take a stab at these characters uh, for a while, and he's just I want to do like you're doing great with things with Ultimate Spider-Man. What do you want to do next? Like I want to do Wolverine. Like
mm,
Wolverine is just what I want to do, and Wolverine. Sorry, that was my laundry alarm.
oh,
um, but seeing him tackle Wolverine is it's classic character, and I'm loving what he's doing with it. And seeing
yeah.
him play off these other characters, the Avengers, the X Force, and seeing all of them, kind of play off each other.
Yeah. Now, our final book that we're going to talk about today is Aliens versus Avengers #1. And this fits a theme that I didn't even realize until we were just talking about. All three of these books are alternate timeline, alternate
Mm-hmm.
Earth, and Hickman just kind of being free to just tell the story that he wants to tell. And this one, art by the amazing Esad Rabik. I've loved his art his painted style ever since I first saw
Yeah.
it. I've been in love. Um,
Does he do
this
coloring on this too?
yes, I don't see any other artists listed. So yeah, I think it is
That's
just
awesome.
Esad Rabik. Um, this book, I also did not know what to expect or what to. I just knew
Other
Hickman was
than it's
writing
going
it.
to be Aliens versus the
Yeah.
Avengers.
Besides the title, which I kind of love the AVA in the on the cover.
Yeah,
I'm
it's awful. It's like an inverted version of the Wayland logo from the Aliens
yes,
films.
yeah, hmm,
I really
which
like, and that didn't occur to me until like midway through the issue, like because Wayland is in this book, uh, and I first saw him in Prometheus, the movie. That's my exposure
oh yes, right, hmm,
to the Alien franchise,
yes, hmm,
and so seeing him here was great. And so when I saw his logo on the building, I had to go back to the cover and then turn my phone around, and it's like, oh, that's just the Wayland logo upside down. And I thought that was a
yes,
very nice touch. So
yeah.
my
I
question for
like
you,
that too.
Factor, is what's your exposure to the Alien? Like, what's your history with aliens and Alien?
I've seen every Alien movie. I would say I'm not a fanatic, but I do love the Alien franchise. And the most recent, and now I'm blanking on the name. The most recent one, Romulus, just came out in theaters not too long ago, and I really enjoyed that. That was one of my favorite movies of this year, and it sets up the Alien franchise very nicely for future installments. But I was in kind of an Alien mood because I saw Romulus not too long ago, so this was the perfect blend, I would say, of mixing up two universes that don't normally belong together. Although Marvel, because they bought Fox, I'm sorry, because Disney bought Fox, they're all of the characters can and kind of commingle and the aliens. They do have a Marvel Aliens book,
Yeah, they
which
do.
has
Yeah.
I've been enjoying that. It hasn't been my favorite stuff, but I've been enjoying it just as an Aliens fan. So tying these two things together, and I was like, I wasn't sure of what I was gonna get. Once I got into this book and saw that, oh, it's kind of like a
It's a dystopian
post-apocalyptic.
future. Yeah.
Yes. And seeing T'Challa old, that was what kind of set it up. Oh, okay, this is in the future. Um, once it I wasn't sure as I again, like I said, with the Hickman stuff at the very beginning, I'm always like, okay, what's going on? Try to get my bearings. As soon as I saw T'Challa with a full white beard, I was like, oh, okay, I'm grounded now. I know where we're at. I know what's going
Mhm.
to happen. So as those dominoes fell of, okay, here's Carol in the future, here's Miles in the future, here's Bruce Banner in the future, here's Valeria in the future. As each one of these characters kind of uh came out, I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Now I'm getting into it. And this story has me, it has hooked me. I
Mhm.
cannot wait to see what happens next. Again, another fantastic first issue. Hickman is great with these setups, and he's also good with his payoffs as well. So the premise of the alien, the xenomorphs are the ultimate killing machine. Sending those out into the universe and sending out multiple replicants of the multiple replicators, the queens who can lay eggs. How do you stop that? Like it's hard enough to stop one of them, but they've sent out four of them to Earth, and then they're just laying eggs. And then once those eggs hatch, then they lay egg. Like it replicates and multiplies, and it's like, no, there's no way to stop it. And that's what this is like, the Avengers trying to figure out, okay, we already lost, which I like that. It's not, oh, okay, they saw the problem and then all right, they're just gonna avenge, they're gonna come in and take everybody out. No, they lost because the xenomorphs were way too, they duplicated too quickly, they multiplied too fast, and they killed almost all of the population. So what do you do now at this point? So I thought the setup and the premise for this was fantastic. What did you think about Aliens versus Avengers #1?
Oh, I loved Aliens versus Avengers #1. I didn't know what to expect, and obviously the art of the xenomorphs and the art of all the characters was fantastic. I loved seeing the older versions of characters, and
Yeah.
I loved seeing older Valeria, who looks just like Sue. And it confused me a little bit because I thought it was Sue,
Ah,
and I was like, "Wow, Sue's looking good, but Carol's looking awful." But it's Valeria. But and seeing an older Miles was really cool. Like
which I
near
kept
like
I my
not
my
continue.
wife was next to me when I was reading it, and I kept saying, "Man, take his mask off. Let's see what Miles looks like as an older, like, because he's younger than all these other characters, so obviously he's not gonna be as old." But
Mm-hmm.
they kept his mask on the entire time, so I was like, "Ah, I want to see Miles."
Maybe in a future issue.
I'm sure at some point he's gonna
Yeah,
take his
and
mask
I
off.
like how they kind of tied the alien thing with xenomorphs with symbiotes
Yes.
near the end of the
Mhm.
issue, and that was kind of like
That was
that's just
cool.
something that you don't think would work, but then when you think about it as you're reading it, you're like xenomorphs and symbiotes. Yeah, that tracks. Uh, so, so seeing these older characters, when Bruce shows up, I thought like maybe like Bruce Banner had become Wayland and had taken over, but
Ooh,
Wayland and Bruce Banner are kind of working together, and seeing an
that's
older
interesting.
Hulk
Mhm.
was cool. Yeah,
He got the
uh,
receding hairline.
yeah. It was yeah, that was great, and the art was fantastic.
Oh, yeah, man.
Assad Rabik totally killing it like he did in Secret Wars,
Yes.
and I think if you're gonna have an epic story like Avengers versus Aliens, you definitely want that epic feel that you had
Yeah.
in that book.
And this also raises the bar for crossover, like, it feels very, okay, this is a corporate tie-in, like, again, they
Sure,
just had the Aliens movie, but even if, like, you take
with the
all that
Captain Marvel
away.
hashtag.
Yes, which I love the little alien xenomorph hashtag if you did it on social media. I love that even if you take all that stuff away, this is just a great story. Like if you think
Hmm.
about it's a future Avengers setting up and how do they stop this thing that's almost unstoppable. And I'm sure Hickman has some type of great finale planned for us, but
Sure.
it doesn't feel like a corporate spin-off, like a corporate tie-in to a movie. It feels like this could be like a summer crossover for Marvel, like just a good big storyline that involves the whole world. So Hickman is great. We saw that with Secret Wars, doing universe-wide stuff, like huge storytelling. It makes it feel like the Xenomorphs have always been a part of Marvel, and they've
Yeah.
always been there. So I can't like again. I feel like a broken record whenever I talk about Hickman, but all of these issues just prove his strengths of being able to talk about other different timelines, different parallel universes, and setting up what the story's going to be, hooking you to say, okay, you have to come back for the next issue. I don't think there's any first issue that Hickman doesn't sink his hook in and pull you in. I just can't wait to see how they do this, especially because spoilers for Aliens versus Avengers. If you haven't read it, you need to read it. All these great Hickman
Hmm.
books you need to read, but they kill off Valeria in this first issue, and I thought she was going to be the Deus Ex Machina. I thought she was going to be the one to solve everything because
Because
she's
she
like,
always is.
yeah. So immediately taking the smartest player off the team, she's gone. We don't know. I don't. Did they say Reed's dead at this point? I can't remember if
I
he's.
think they said Reed is dead.
Yeah. So we don't know where Doom is at this point. We don't know. Um, I guess Tony's going to appear because we see him on the cover. So at some point, I
Yeah,
think
and
Tony Stark's
Steve
going to
is
appear.
still around because he's on the cover of issue 2.
Yeah. But the
Um,
smartest characters, I think Valeria, I thought she was going to be. I don't know. Maybe Moon Girl shows up.
but yeah, I'm really excited for all these Hickman books. They're going to be great.
Man, I can't wait. And I can't wait to hear your thoughts on all these Jonathan Hickman books. Leave your comments down below. Let us know. And we're going to be talking more Hickman in the future on This Comic Cooks.